Welcome to the true historical tale of the Saxons and Anglos. Will Edwin unite the seven kingdoms? Will he find his lost love? And will he finally avenge his father's death? The story takes a new turn. Thank you for staying with us. Let's travel back in time with your own heroes of history. Episode 6. Ashes and Thrones. The Shadow of Kings. The snow on the mountain peaks had begun to melt. The first rays of the sun painted the icy trails of Sorcer in shades of gold. Edwin sat upon his horse, staring down into the valley where the mist hid the path to the northern kingdoms. His face carried the kind of resolve only found in those who have seen loss. War and betrayal up close. 5 kingdoms remain. Edwin muttered under his breath. Harold replied, "And the enemy is smarter than ever, my lord. Lorcan may have retreated, but he's not dead." Edwin's eyes shifted to the sky. "Sometimes the dead are more dangerous than the living," he said quietly. A call for alliance after leaving Sorcer Fortress. Edwin's company headed east. 3 days later, they reached Friedig Valley, a silent land where the cold was soft, but the air carried secrets. There stood an ancient temple known as Elder Hall. Legends said old kings once swore their oaths of unity there. As the camp was set, Udric guarded the entrance while Edwin walked into the temple. The walls were worn, the carvings faint, yet one line still gleamed beneath the dust. 7 thrones, 1 promise. A deep voice echoed through the mist. "You speak of promises, Edwin, but can you keep them?" Edwin turned sharply. From the fog emerged a tall, broad-shouldered man, King Draven of the North, the very ruler Edwin had been searching for. Edwin bowed slightly. "I come bearing peace, not war. Lorcan's shadow spreads across the north. If we do not unite now, this land will fall to ashes." Draven's expression remained cold. "I take orders from no man. The ice is my law, and my law has no room for the weak." A faint smile crossed Edwin's lips. "Then I'll show you that we are not weak." The Knight of Trial Draven spoke. "If you truly seek alliance, you and your men must endure the trial of blooded silence. Those who scream or turn back die." That night, the storm came. The snow howled like a beast, and the wind sliced through their armor. Edwin, Harold, and Udric stepped out into the freezing dark. Ahead of them stretched a long wall of snow, beyond which shadows shifted faintly. "This is madness," Harold muttered. Edwin replied, "Madness has always been the first test of kings." They pressed on through the storm. The silence was so heavy it felt alive, like the snow itself was watching them. A crack suddenly split the ground. One soldier slipped, crying out as he fell. Edwin grabbed his arm just in time and pulled him up. "I told you," Harold whispered harshly. "No sound." Moments later, Edwin felt a strange presence following him. He turned. Nothing, but for an instant he thought he heard a whisper in the wind. "Edwin, don't look back." It was Ela's voice. The end of the trial at dawn. They reached a massive stone half buried in frost. On it, written in crimson, were the words, "He who reaches here shall fulfill his vow." Edwin placed his hand upon the stone. Draven appeared behind them, astonished. "You survived longer than all my soldiers," Edwin replied calmly. "We are not soldiers of ice, we are soldiers of a dream." For the first time, Draven smiled faintly. He lowered his sword. "You've earned the North's respect. From this day, we stand with you." Edwin nodded. "Then the first brick of our alliance has been laid." The shadow of betrayal as they returned to camp. Udric approached with concern. "My lord, something strange." "Someone's written new words on the temple wall." Edwin walked back to see it. There, freshly carved, were the chilling words, "When the 7 become one, a traitor shall rise to break them all." A shadow crossed Edwin's face. "So it begins, the war of trust and treachery." His voice faded into the wind, but high above the mountains echoed his words, as if even time itself was warning of the storm to come. The whispering forest, as they left Draven's land behind, the snow began to melt. The air was thick with mist and the scent of fallen leaves. Edwin and his men rode south, toward the edge, where mountains ended and deep forest began. the ancient raven forest, where even sunlight struggled to touch the ground. Harold slowed his horse and said, "This forest carries bad omens, my lord. They say those who forget themselves dwell here." Edwin gazed into the shadows beneath the trees. Sometimes losing oneself is the only way to truly be found. The company entered the forest. Birds were silent. Only faint footsteps rustled under the leaves, as if someone unseen followed them. The guardian of the woods. By evening, they stopped beside a small stream. Ordric lit a fire, while Edwin sat by the water, turning Ela's ring between his fingers. Then, with the soft wind, a whisper floated through the night. "Edwin, you are not alone." He turned sharply. A veiled woman stood before him, her face hidden, her voice carrying an ache he couldn't place. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am Elora, guardian of the silent forest. The path you walk leads through blood, not promises." Edwin lowered his sword slightly. "I seek no war, only unity." Elora's voice darkened. "Unity. The king you fight once stood beside your father. Do you even know who your true enemy is?" Edwin frowned. "What are you saying?" She turned away slowly. "Your father's death was not Lorcan's doing alone. Someone of your own blood betrayed him." Edwin's heart pounded. "Tell me who," he demanded, but she vanished like smoke into the trees. The spark of truth. Ordric asked, "Who was she?" Edwin replied quietly, "Someone who knows the past better than we do." That night, sleep escaped him. The words echoed in his head, "Of your own blood." At dawn, they reached an old stone temple in the heart of the forest. Carved upon the doorway were the words, "He who seeks truth must first sacrifice his shadow." Edwin touched the stone. It grew warm. The door slowly opened. Inside was darkness, but faint light began to shape across the walls. The light formed an image. His father, King Edric, falling under a sword, but the hand that struck him wasn't Lorcan's. It was a face Edwin knew. His breath caught. It was his uncle, Larnock, who dug the fire of rage. Edwin struck the wall with his fist. So it was never a war of kingdoms. It was a war within blood. Harold placed a hand on his shoulder. "My lord, what you saw might be an illusion." Edwin shook his head. "No, this is the truth. It was betrayal that destroyed my father's realm. The enemy was never outside." He looked up toward the faint light filtering through the trees. "From now on, my fight is not only for unity, but for justice." The wind rose like a storm. The trees swayed violently, and somewhere deep in the woods a whisper echoed, "He who knows the truth shall never find peace again." The border of betrayal. The sun was sinking low. Shadows stretching long across the valley. Edwin and his men had left the forest and entered the barren plains of Cairnfield, a land still scarred by old wars. Harold bent down, touching the soil. "This earth smells of blood." "My lord," Edwin replied quietly, "blood never truly sinks into the ground. It just learns to stay silent." Ahead stood the ruins of an old fortress, Elderfield Post, once part of his father's domain. Now abandoned. Ordric said, "If Larnock truly betrayed your father, this might be where he built his new army." Edwin gripped his sword. "Then this place will speak the truth." The silence of the fortress. They pushed open the gate. The air was thick with dust and decay. Broken torches hung on cracked walls. Shattered pots and the scent of burnt wood lingered. Suddenly chains rattled in the dark. Harold drew his sword. "Who's there?" A frail voice answered, "I am no enemy, only a prisoner." Edwin lifted a torch. A grey-bearded soldier sat bound to the wall, weak but alive. "Who are you?" Edwin asked. "I am Cairn, once guard to your father. Larnock imprisoned me because I saw the truth." "What truth?" Edwin demanded. The old man trembled. "Before your father's death, Larnock swore he would divide the realm. He said you were not worthy of the throne." Edwin's voice hardened. "He killed for a crown." Cairn nodded. "Yes, my lord. And now he's allied with the southern kingdom, Fallenric." Edwin's jaw tightened. "Then he is not just a traitor. He is becoming a king." The fire of deceit. They freed the old guard and explored deeper into the fortress. On one wall was carved a hidden map. 7 kingdoms marked in faded lines. With a red trail stretching eastward, Odric studied it. This red path. Troop movement, perhaps. Edwin said no, it's Larnach's plan. He means to claim each realm one by one. Harold growled. Then we must strike first. Edwin shook his head. No, that's what he wants. Chaos. We will gather the kings. Unity, not war, will end this. Odric frowned. And if they refuse? Edwin's eyes hardened. Then history itself will force them to choose. The night assault. At midnight, the fortress awoke to the sound of hooves. Soldiers ran in shouting, "Lord Edwin!" "Black-clad riders have breached the gate." Edwin drew his sword. "Hold the courtyard. No one leaves alive." Lightning flashed, and a storm of blades began. Dozens of Larnach's men poured through the gate, their armor marked with the twin-blade crest. The clash was brutal. Harold shouted over the noise, "They mean to kill us all." Edwin met the enemy captain face to face. Their swords collided. Sparks flew. The captain's mask slipped away, revealing a face Edwin knew. "You?" Edwin gasped. The man's voice trembled. "I am no brother of yours. I serve Lord Larnach." Edwin's eyes burned. "Then today you fall with him, with a final strike." He ended the fight. The air smelled of smoke and iron. A new dawn at sunrise. Silence returned. Edwin stood on the ramparts, his hand bleeding, his eyes fixed on the distant hills. Odric said, "We survived the night." "But Larnach grows stronger," Edwin replied. "Strength doesn't come from armies. It comes from purpose." "He has men, I have faith," Harold smiled faintly. "Then onward, my lord." Next stop, the Council of the 7 Kings. Edwin packed his gear. This isn't a march of war anymore. It's a march toward destiny. And so they rode south, toward the next chapter of fate, where loyalty, friendship, and vengeance would all be tested once again. Promises buried in snow. The night had turned Circe's land into a frozen graveyard. The northern wind whispered through the trees like an ancient tale being retold by the earth itself. Edwin stepped out of his tent, his boots sinking into the thick snow. Each crunch beneath his feet echoed in the silence. The pale moon struggled to shine through drifting clouds, and in the distance, the faint glow of enemy fires flickered across the mountains. Ella appeared at the entrance of the tent, her cloak wrapped tightly around her. "You haven't slept again, Edwin?" she asked softly. He looked at the horizon and replied, "When the earth sleeps in silence but the sky stays awake, how can a man like me find rest?" Ella walked closer, her breath visible in the cold air. "Tomorrow you must face the Council of Chieftains. They wait for your word. But remember, every alliance has its price." Edwin smiled faintly. "I paid that price the day I swore over my father's blood." A shadow crossed her face. "And what if the price is your heart?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Then I will lay my heart on the altar of duty." The snow began to fall harder, covering the ground and silencing the night. But within Edwin's chest a storm was rising, one not of wind but of fate. Morning came with a dazzling glare. The entire valley shone like a mirror of ice. Circe's warriors stood in neat lines, their armor frosted and faces hard with resolve. Lord August, the elder chief with a beard white as snow, stepped forward. "Edwin," he said, "today you must decide. Will we stand beside you to unite the 7 kingdoms, or will each tribe die, defending its own frozen soil?" Edwin's eyes scanned the gathered faces. Then he spoke with steady calm. "We will unite, not for the throne, but for survival. If we remain divided, our children will forget even where our graves lie." A roar broke out. Swords lifted high, voices echoed through the valley. But among the trees, hidden beyond the frost, a pair of eyes watched silently. It was Lord Ericsson, the same man who had once betrayed and murdered Edwin's father. Ericsson turned to his men. "The boy dreams of being a king. I'll make sure he never wakes from that dream." By dusk, a messenger entered Edwin's tent, his breath trembling. "My lord, word has come. The mountain pass is taken. Ericsson's forces hold it now." "How many?" Edwin asked. "Over 500 men. And Ericsson himself leads them." Edwin's fist tightened around his sword hilt. "Then the time has come. This won't be a battle for the throne. It will be a battle for a promise. Ella stepped forward, her voice low. And if the price of that promise is your life, he smiled, then my life will become a chapter in history. That night, under the storming snow, Edwin and the warriors of Circe advanced quietly through the white wilderness. Their footsteps vanished almost as soon as they were made. When they reached the edge of the mountain path, they could see the faint firelight of the enemy camp. "Not a sound," Edwin whispered. "Tonight belongs only to the brave." A young soldier asked, "And if we fall?" Edwin looked at him and said calmly, "Then tomorrow the sun will tell our story." The clash began. Blades struck steel, screams tore through the night. The snow turned black with blood. Edwin fought like a man possessed. Then through the chaos he saw him, Ericsson. They faced each other in the storm. Ericsson smirked. "Your father tried to steal my throne. Will you do the same?" Edwin's eyes burned with fury. "No, I will steal your peace." Their swords collided, sparks scattering into the dark like fireflies. Each blow carried the weight of years of vengeance. Finally Edwin struck. A sharp, clean thrust to Ericsson's chest. Ericsson fell to his knees, his breath fading. You're the boy I left to die." Edwin leaned closer, his voice low and steady. "And today I am the man you created." Ericsson's eyes dimmed, and he fell still. The snow beneath him slowly turned red. When the battle ended, dawn broke over a crimson field. The warriors of Circe gathered around Edwin, their voices rising in triumph. "Victory to our leader! Long live the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms!" Edwin raised his sword toward the sun. "This victory is not my revenge, it is my promise. A promise that will shape the future of our lands." Ella stepped beside him, her eyes soft but proud. "Your heart is free now, Edwin." He smiled faintly. "My heart may be free, but the land is still bound. The journey isn't over yet." Above them, the sunlight broke through the clouds, scattering over the snow like gold dust. It felt as if the heavens themselves had paused to witness the moment. Thus ended Episode 6, Chapter 4. But Edwin's story was far from over. History had only just begun to write his legend. The rising storm snow covered the mountains like a white shroud, and the wind whispered through the broken banners of Circe. Edwin rode ahead, his cloak torn by battle and frost, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the next kingdom awaited. Behind him, his men followed, tired, wounded, but unbroken. The path to the kingdom of Draven was narrow and perilous, curling like a serpent through the frozen cliffs. Every breath turned into mist, every sound echoed through the emptiness. But deeper than the cold was the silence, a silence that spoke of something waiting in the shadows. Harold rode up beside Edwin. 3 days without rest, he said quietly. The men are strong, but their spirits waver. Edwin didn't look back. Strength doesn't come from rest, Harold, he replied. It comes from the fire that pain leaves behind. Aldrich, riding behind them, muttered, "Then by now we should be made of flames." Edwin almost smiled. "Perhaps we are." The road to Draven. By the second night, a strange fog covered the valley. Torches flickered weakly, their flames swallowed by the mist. "Stay close," Edwin ordered. "This isn't natural." Suddenly a scream tore through the silence. A soldier vanished into the fog. No sound, no struggle, just gone. Aldrich drew his sword. "Something's here." Then came the shadows, men in dark furs and bone masks, moving like ghosts. They struck fast, their blades whispering through the mist. Draven scouts, assassins of the north. Edwin raised his sword. "Defend the line!" Steel met steel, and the valley erupted in chaos. Harold's axe cut through one attacker, but another leapt from the fog, slashing at Edwin's shoulder. Blood spilled on the snow, melting it crimson. But Edwin didn't fall. He turned, parried, and struck back, driving his sword through the assassin's chest. As the body fell, the mask cracked, revealing not a stranger's face, but a familiar one. A gasp went through the men. It was a soldier of Circe. Edwin's heart tightened. "The traitor wasn't left behind," he whispered. "He's been following us." The king of Draven at dawn. They reached the gates of Draven, massive, carved into black stone. Guarded by warriors whose eyes were colder than the ice around them, a tall man stepped forward, wearing a fur crown. His voice echoed across the snow. "I am King Varric of Draven. You come from Sorsa. Speak, before the frost silences you." Edwin stepped forward. "I come not as a conqueror, but as a seeker of unity. The darkness that hunts me will soon reach your gates too." Varric studied him for a long moment. "Unity? The North bends to no one. We survive alone." "Alone," Edwin said quietly, "is how every kingdom falls." There was a tense silence. Then Varric laughed, sharp as ice breaking. "You have courage, Sorsa's son. But courage freezes fast here. Spend one night in Draven. If you survive its cold, I'll hear your proposal." Night of trials. That night, the blizzard came. Winds roared like beasts and snow slammed against the fortress walls. Fires died in their pits. Soldiers huddled for warmth. Edwin stood on the ramparts, eyes closed, feeling the storm beat against him. A voice echoed behind him. Ella's, soft but distant. "Edwin, will your heart ever rest?" He turned, but there was no one there. Only the storm and the sound of the wind whispering her name. Aldrich approached, his face pale. "Sire, the king watches you. He wants to see if you break." Edwin opened his eyes. "Then let him watch. The storm is not my enemy. It's my reminder that I'm still alive." The oath of ice. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the land silent and white again. King Varric came to the courtyard, where Edwin stood surrounded by frost and dawnlight. "You did not seek shelter," Varric said. "Even my own men hid from the storm." Edwin replied, "If a leader hides, his men will freeze. If he stands, they'll endure." Varric's expression softened. He drew a blade from his belt, ancient silver etched with runes. "This sword belonged to the first king of Draven," he said. "He forged it during a storm just like this. Take it. As a mark of trust." Edwin took the sword, bowing slightly. "Then let this mark not just trust, but alliance." Varric nodded. "Draven stands with you, Edwin, for now." As Edwin turned to his men, a single thought echoed in his mind. 2 kingdoms united. 5 remain. As the sun rose over the white peaks, Edwin looked toward the horizon. The journey ahead was long, but the fire in his eyes burned brighter than ever. He whispered, "Father, your war is now mine, Ella. Your name guides me still, and to those who betrayed me, I'm coming." The wind carried his words through the mountains, like a promise written in the snow. "Thank you for staying with us till the end." Edwin's path grows darker, but his purpose burns brighter. Will he unite the 7 kingdoms, or lose himself to the storm? Find out in the next episode of Heroes of History. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps this story alive. Because the legend of Edwin has only just begun.